everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses and local residents on why they like being in Flagler County. Today, I'm super excited to have my guest, Mr. Josh, with us today. Thank you so much, Josh, for coming on and spending a few minutes of your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I am so stoked to be here, to be honest with you. I'm excited to just chat and get to know you a little bit better, and hopefully the feeling is mutual, vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah, I know that before that we were started recording, you were mentioning that not a lot of people really understand what you do. So I'm really excited for you to kind of explain to me and then also the audience, and then hopefully people get some more education on what it is you do, how you help people, and then all of that great stuff. But to get started, I'd love to hear your story on, coming to Flagler, coming to Palm Coast. How has that been for you?
Eh, Amazing. Like, you know, all the stars aligned, and it was
Right.
meant to be. So, all right. So I'll do this as quick as humanly possible. So I grew up in Fort Myers, so I knew I
Mhm.
loved Florida. I don't like the cold weather. We lived in Louisville. I love Louisville, Kentucky. Don't get me wrong; it's an awesome city, but a lot of times of the year, parts of the year, it's freezing. And so anyway, and I had been in this industry, the sewing industry, for 6-ish years in Louisville. Other than the cold weather, I loved pretty much what I was doing, everything about it. I worked for a guy who had 8 stores at one point. I became his operations manager. And so I was able to learn the industry. Like, talk about a crash course. Like, you're forced to learn when you have that many employees, and we had so much product. And so I was learning the industry. I wasn't sure if it was like my forever gig. I didn't know. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoy anything with people, and so in the retail world,
Mhm.
um, that's all you do is talk to people, customer service. So 8 storefronts gives you a chance to see a lot of different people. So I'm just growing and learning, but it kind of felt like it was running its course only because there were things that I wanted to do, or maybe that I would do a little bit differently, or that I just wanted to do for myself. And so it got to the timing again, lining the stars, whatever. Something told me just see what's out there, see what the chances are. So I literally Googled quilt shops for sale in Florida. I grew up in Fort Myers, which is
Mhm.
quite a ways away from Palm
Yeah.
Coast. So when Palm Coast popped up, I'm going, well, where is that? Never heard of it.
No.
And what's funny is I went to art school in Palatka, Florida
Oh.
School of the Arts. Yeah. Okay. I lived in Orange Park, Winter Park. My brother went to Flagler in St. Augustine. I've been everywhere around Flagler County, but I had never heard of Palm Coast. So when I looked on a map, I'm like, that's really weird. Like,
Yeah.
so that, but immediately I felt comfortable about the area because I enjoyed all those places that I had lived, except Palatka, give or take. I loved the art school. No, not knocking, no diss to Palatka, but it just wasn't for me. There wasn't enough there. But anywho, so I met the previous owner. Cut Up and Sew had been here for years beforehand. So I met the owner, and honestly, we hit it off, and the timing was right, and so we moved down. We
Mhm.
moved in October of 2021. Yeah. And then we officially opened as new owners November 2021.
Wow.
And so, what is this? Going on our third year, I guess. Is that
Yeah,
right?
pretty
Oh, that's
much.
crazy.
Yeah.
So it has gone so fast, and it's been so almost like storybook perfect. I keep waiting for the red flag,
Right.
but there hasn't been one.
Yeah.
So, it's been an amazing, it feels like it's been very fast, but it's been an amazing adventure. That's super cliche, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Time
Uh,
flies by when
so
you're having fun. It's a
that's
saying for
true.
a reason, you know?
Yeah, that's
These
exactly
these
right.
we're it's cliche, but it's just true, and you can't
It
stop the
is.
truth. That's
Yeah.
so funny. I actually have a friend in Louisville, so it's so funny that you bring it. Like, I feel like it's kind of a random place to bring up
Yeah.
in Kentucky,
Well, your friend's going
but
to correct you, by the way. We call it Louisville. They get on you if you say Louisville.
yeah, I know. I'm sorry. As you can tell, I'm not from any of these places.
Well,
Uh,
what's funny is, and I'm totally joking, but like,
right.
you, you're only in Louisville, you say Louisville.
Ooh.
Like, and people are always like, "Oh, you're from Kentucky?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I moved from Kentucky. I'm more from Florida."
Right.
So
Yeah. You're
I'm
not.
okay if you
Yeah.
say Louisville or Louisville or whatever.
Yeah, like we used to snowbird a lot to Kissimmee. And so when we
Oh
first
yeah,
went there, my dad kept saying Kissimmee, 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 Kissimmee. And everyone was like, no, you can't say
that's
that. And he
wrong.
was like, what's wrong? They're like, that's not it. He's like, what is it? He's like, they're like, it's Kissimmee. I think it's been like an entire year we had to like correct each other. It's like, no, it is Kissimmee. It's Kissimmee. It's such a random. It's
I'm
like
so
these
sorry. Yeah, it
no.
meant no offense.
No, you're good. It's just it's fun to hear, towns and the way that they like to be pronounced, which is just how it is. You can't
That's right.
like technically it's Detroit, but technically it's not Detroit. It's
That's true.
those
Well, I
things.
guess we're lucky because you can't really screw up Palm Coast.
I know it would be kind of hard,
Illinois.
I feel.
Yeah. Hard.
But yeah, so it's super fun to hear. And it's really interesting that you told me before we started recording that no one really understands what you do. And I guess for me, like I grew up, my mom was like, one of the skills you have to eventually learn is sewing. So I did sewing a lot. A lot of my friends did it. So we did a lot of like quilting and sewing and then like needlepoint and all of these like very, all of the familial things that you do. So when you say like, no, no, I'm like, I don't, that makes no sense to me. So I would love for you to share, what is cut up and sew? What is it that you help people with? And what should people know? Like, okay, this is a good time to reach out to Joshua. This is a good time to stop by to see, this project I'm doing or something I want to do. Anything like that.
Yeah, cool. Um, I can. What do we got? Like a couple hours? I can
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah, we have a few days, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Cut Up and Sew is, I mean, so we have a brick and mortar storefront. And then
Mhm.
obviously we have our online cutupandsew.com where people can shop for, well, let me back up. So Cut Up and Sew, to make it real plain and simple, we sell sewing machines, we sell 4,000 bolts of fabric, we sell all the notions and tools and things you need for sewing and quilting. We offer classes for all ages and skill sets. So whether it's a beginner, advanced, we do repairs on all brands of sewing machines. And so it's kind of like a one-stop shop
Yeah,
for now. You can get stuff online, which is
sure.
great, but most people in this industry want to touch it and feel it. It's the tangible stuff, and so we prefer to people come in and see us. But obviously, we love having people shop on our website. But people in the store create a buzz, and so that's been my number one thing for Cut Up and Sew. The storefront's great. Palm Coast is growing very fast, but how do we get people to understand what we do? Because when they see sew and quilt shop, they either are like, okay, they do alterations.
Mm.
That's the biggest people because we're not technically for hire, but we do have tons of people that we can hand you cards and we can refer you to amazing people.
Hmm.
But we don't do that in the store. And then they think quilting, and those who don't know immediately go, well, my grandma used to quilt by hand. So, and that's what they think, and I don't blame them. There's nothing wrong with that. But the world, the quilting world, is insane. Like these machines, these sewing machines and embroidery machines, um you know some of them cost 20 grand. So we're
Yeah.
talking about high tech computerized machines that are just awesome. So it's a really cool industry, so it's easy to get excited about it.
Yeah.
And so I think the misconception of, they think sewing quilting, they're thinking about hand sewing kind of the
Sure.
old school way, where it has
Yeah.
changed a lot. And so I encourage people, if you're bored, you're retired, you have kids, Palm Coast is amazing, but there's not that much to do. Let's be real. And so, especially for kids, I mean, so I love the idea of people reaching out to us. We can create a class for you if it's not on our calendar already.
Oh.
And we've done homeschool groups. I've
Oh
even done 4 and
yeah.
5 year olds. So 4 and 5 year olds shouldn't really play with needles. So we did collage quilting, zero sewing. So, we try to, I almost look at this as an art store.
Yeah.
I'm a fine art major, so that's
Oh.
why it was easy for me to fall in love with the industry. I kind of skipped over all that. But that's why, cuz all these quilts, everything that they're doing is creating. It's creative, it's art. And so um it's not just for the hardcore quilters or the
Yeah.
hand sewers or whatever. We try to make it a craft store where people can just come and hopefully get inspired, motivated, and hang out with us and have some fun. I
Yeah.
don't know if that answered the question,
I
but
think it does. I mean, it does
okay,
for
cool.
me for sure.
All
Like
right.
I said, I used to sew growing up, not like super crazy or anything, but my mom, like, you should at least learn if you need to ever hem your clothes, right? Do I remember any of it now? No. But I'm sure, like, if I took a class, I would be able to come back to that. But I think that's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's really cool that you're able to help because like I was a homeschooler, we were all homeschool kids and we all had classes with, that's how we did so much crafting growing up,
Yeah,
is that our parents were like, hey, we have this group of kids, we want them to learn sewing. They found a sewing teacher and there we went. That's how we
that's awesome.
learned. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And one thing I'll just add is that, sewing machines used to be like just a household appliance.
right.
So everybody, their vacuum, their microwave, and their sewing machine. And I took home ec and did sewing in high school, but then they removed that from schools.
Yeah.
So the younger generations aren't brought up like knowing how to, or even maybe even seeing a sewing machine, except possibly at their grandma's house in the corner collecting dust. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes to get kids excited about sewing, but when they come in the store and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it looked so what did somebody tell me once? It looked like a rainbow threw up in your store." I'm like, "That's a compliment, believe it or not,
Yeah.
because there's color everywhere. We try to make it super inviting and fun."
Yeah. And
So,
I also wanted to point out that's the huge perk of having someone local, having a local shop, that you're able to stop by. And like you said, I'm a big texture person. Like I love blankets, but if it's the wrong texture, I cannot use it. I cannot be in the same room as it, as the same vicinity as it. Like it just it doesn't work for me.
I want
Like
that
it's that.
scratchy blanket near me. I'm
Oh,
with you.
yeah. Like I'm just very specific about these textures, and it's one thing that I love about in-person shopping and being able to go there. And I used to go with my mom to Joann's all the time because she'd never want to buy costumes. She'd always want to make them for me. And I was like,
Yeah,
whatever. And she's like, well, at least, test these out, feel these, things like that. And that's a
that's
huge,
cool.
huge
You do
perk
have to
that
touch it, feel it. Yeah.
yeah. And then also like you also mentioned that, you can do customized classes for people and make it because there's just so many cool things that you can make that people don't realize. And they also don't realize that sewing is actually a lot of work. I don't think it's one of those things that you can always just YouTube tutorial unless you have some type of skill. It's so hard to even get like the thread through the nail without someone like helping you, or needle, sorry. And it's like it's this like simple things that it's just easier to have someone there and stop you and be like, hey, this is a bad stitch. Let's undo
Yeah.
that and do it back together. And it's easier than making something you're like, I don't know why it doesn't look like the tutorial told me to do
Yeah. Why
it.
now I do tell people all the time, like, hey, check out YouTube. Like it is useful, or maybe you get
Sure.
inspired.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, following and doing it in person is so much easier. Like it just is. And by the way, these new sewing machines, you're not putting the thread through the needle.
Right.
You're going push a button and it goes and threads it by
Right.
itself, and you're like, hey. So
My
we're
barber
kind of
machine.
spoiled. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
but if you bring in now, I should mention, I don't want to deter someone for coming in with a sewing machine that's been in their family for 40 years. We get those all the time. Those things are metal tanks. They're not going to die. They're actually harder to use, but you can absolutely take a class and use that. You do not have to buy a new sewing machine. And if you don't even know if you want a sewing machine, we'll let you use one for the class just so you can see if you're, gonna stick with it.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
I think that's great. It's one of those things where, you might have to go through a few stages of learning and
All
doing
right.
it and physically touching it and going through the process with, an expert like yourself helping them. It's really where you can find out what you like or don't like or where you want to keep going or you don't. And it's just something you have to be there and kind of go out there. Um, I know you mentioned that you haven't been in Palm Coast like you've been here longer than me, so I consider that a long time. But
Okay.
what would you recommend for, maybe new people in the area on, maybe places they can go, groups they can go to, or anything that you think that they can do to just kind of put themselves out there, get involved with the communities?
Well, there's this sweet place called Cut Up and Sew.
Yeah. I
That,
don't know. I don't
so
know if I've ever heard of them. You'll have to let me know who they are.
Google it, Cut Up
Right,
and Sew.
okay.
Yeah,
I
but
will.
so of course we would love for you to come spend some time with us. But so I mentioned that I have a 5-year-old, right? So that is something that I hear all the time from people moving here. Like, what do you do? Truthfully, there's not that much for children to do, but there are a bazillion groups and
Mm,
clubs. Talk about things for family. We've found that there's lots of things to do. In fact, I think we've done karate class. We're looking at doing a hip hop dance class. We've tried, so all these different. There is stuff to do for sure. You just have to kind of look for it, reach out to people, be active. I will say I'm super involved with social media. Facebook, especially, has a ton of like local communities, local groups that are really cool, and you can ask questions and see what kind of vibe you're getting from people. Ignore the people who are negative. Look, don't let those kind of people bring you down. It's the world we live in, so just scroll on past. Don't There's negative Nancy's everywhere, but there's really good people in Palm Coast that are in your same shoes looking for something to do.
mhm.
So as far as adults, like I joined Referral Diamond Club actually.
Oh,
So you interviewed Brad Ward, who's an
yeah.
amazing guy the other day. I joined that group, and I wasn't sure what I could offer, but what I got from that was community. I feel like I'm more involved. I now know people. There's more invites, and I'm able to kind of network myself into just meeting other people that way, like on a professional level. And then you form friendships, and so that's a natural way to do it. I think that's really cool and helpful if you happen to be a business owner or just in any sense of, I guess, job really. But I don't know. I We go to the park a lot,
Mm,
like a whole lot as a
that's
family, which is
good.
good because one thing I'll say, and I know I'm rambling, but Palm Coast feels and is very safe, and I
Mm,
love that. My wife and my son can go to the park, and I'm not needing to check on them
right.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like that's something that we should be fortunate for
Yeah.
and about because truthfully, I've lived a lot of places and there's not before there were places where I wouldn't wait 15, 20 minutes without just checking in.
Right.
And so I like that here. Like I like the bike trails and you can go down to the waterfront. And so, it's cool. I'm
Yeah.
still figuring it out technically, but that's
I
kind of
think
what
those are
I've
some great places to
got to
start. I know
offer.
we have a lot of great parks. I know Holland Park's really great. Is it Palace or Place, whatever. That's a really great place as well. The Lee
That
Trail,
is the name. Yeah.
yeah, the Lee Trail I know has been mentioned like 3 times within the past week, which is kind of funny. But it's super cool that we have these things in our backyard, and of course we have Flagler Beach so close by. The first Fridays.
I didn't
There's
even
like
mention the beach, but
right.
yeah.
It's like there's so many cool things that you can't possibly mention them all, but we have the beach and there's so many parks, there's so many groups like you mentioned that meet at these places. And it's really great to build that sense of community, to put yourself out there, go to places like Cut Up and So, meet the people there, go to other businesses, meet the people there. I know that's a lot of places that, it seems intimidating, but I think we're really
Well,
fortunate to have a lot of great positive people like you mentioned in the community.
I agree. And also St. Augustine is not far.
Oh yeah.
Like Daytona, even Jacksonville, like an hour is nothing right up the street.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of, I like Palm Coast because it's quiet and it's
Hmm.
not beach town, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but you can get to the beach and you can get to crazy Jacksonville and you can go to St. Augustine if you want to do something a little bit, bigger, whatever. So I kind of find it nice. We're kind of tucked off and I say it's a hidden little gem, but I think everybody's finding us now. So which hey, it's a business owner, come on to Palm
Oh yeah,
Coast.
right, exactly.
Bring
A
it
code,
on.
yeah, come up to Cut and Sew specifically, only there if you're coming to Palm Coast.
Yeah, that's right. Only if you're coming to cut up
But
and sew.
yeah, yeah, of course,
Right.
yeah. But I think that's really because yeah, we're only like an hour and a half max from Orlando as well, which is really not
Yeah.
that far when you think about it. The theme parks are really not that far. There's a lot to do, and I like you mentioned, the small town aspect of it where we're quiet, we're kept to ourselves. I can go down to the beach 90% of the time, there's no problem parking, right? I don't have to fight. I don't have to be like, what do I have to drive for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes to find a park? No, I don't have
And
to
it's
deal with that.
clean.
Yeah. That's a really big part. Yeah. Well,
It is.
Joshua, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. This has been a complete blast. I loved learning more about your business, and it's so cool to see a business like this in Palm Coast. Again, someone who did a lot of this growing up, so this is really comfortable and familiar to me. So, thank you again for the time. I really appreciate it, and thank you to
It's
everyone.
my pleasure.
Oh
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed chatting with you, but now no excuses. You got to come to Cut Up and Sew and see me in
yeah,
person. All right.
oh
So I'm
yeah.
gonna hold you to it.
I'm looking
Everybody
forward to
sees
it.
that. She said yes.
I
All of
did.
you.
I did. Yeah, I'll post it on social media because it's not real unless it's on social media. Of course.
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, again, thank you so much for your
I
time.
appreciate it.
Thank you to everyone listening, and I will see you all next time. Bye.